Let's speak with Congressman James Lankford, freshman Republican from the state of Oklahoma. It looks like that the targets, Congressman, have been dialed back. No longer is a big deal on the table, something much smaller. Are you happy with that?
No, what we really need to be talking about is how to solve the debt problem. That's the big conversation that no one's talking about. There seems to be people that are very panicked about the vote, that think we have a debt ceiling crisis about the vote. We don't have a debt ceiling crisis vote. We have a debt crisis. And so we need to get the ball back on how do we focus on solving the debt long term rather than panic about the vote all the time. That's my concern, is that we seem to all be concerned about how do we get through this vote. The vote's not the issue. The debt is the issue.
Well, did House Speaker John Boehner then make a mistake in essentially going after something much smaller?
No.
And Social Security and Medicare, it looks like, will be off the table for the time being.
We'll see. We'll see what the real agreement is. I can tell you there's a large bipartisan support for trying to push towards getting a solution to our debt, not just raising it again. We've raised the debt ceiling 74 times in the last 40 years. It's not like we haven't been through this before. The issue is every single time we just raise it with no plan to pay it off. I couldn't go get a car loan to somebody and say, I'd like to take out a car loan for $10,000, but I have no plan to pay this back. No one would loan that to us. It's not even rational to continue just to borrow more money with no plan. So all we're pushing for is not to try to be hard-nosed. We're just pushing to say we need to have a plan to be able to pay this off. There's no plan to do it. Why are we loaning out more money? Why are we trying to do this?
If this August 2nd deadline is missed, what do you think will happen?
I think we'll have a couple weeks. I think if people show or if the markets see that we are actually trying to work towards resolving it, this is not just ignoring it, walking away and saying forget about it, I think we'll still have the same stability. Now, there will be a time that will have very serious economic consequences. I'd rather not get close to this. Quite frankly, I think we should have resolved this back in May rather than waiting until July and now pushing more and more towards August. So no, I have no desire to get as close as we can and see how close we can get to the edge. But I don't think that it's going to be August 3rd, lights out.
Well, what does a resolution look like to you? How much would you cut in terms of, and how, in terms of spending? Or are you on board with any? I can use all the language that the politicians have been using the last 2 weeks. Are you on board with any revenue raisers, if you will?
No, single biggest issue for me is a balanced budget amendment. If we had a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, that is the single biggest area we can look at and say, now we're talking about solving the problem. Everything else we do is pending to this Congress, and the next Congress can just punt it. All these spending reductions they're talking about, most of them have reductions in future Congresses. That's not going to really solve the problem. I can't bind some future Congress to cut spending. I can lay out a plan, but I can tell you, and when I came here as a freshman, I didn't look at last Congress and say, well, what did they plan to do? Let me just go ahead and continue their plan. So there was none of that. We can't bind a future Congress. The only way to do it is a balanced budget amendment. We tried it in 1996 was the last time we did this, missed it by one vote in the Senate. Can you imagine what we'd be talking about right now if in 1996 we'd actually passed a balanced budget amendment? We wouldn't have had the financial crisis of 2008.
Given the state of America's finances and given the state of politics down where you are in the nation's capital, would you loan money to Uncle Sam right now? Would you buy U.S. Treasuries? Do you think that that's a good investment?
The whole world is still running to us because it's stable. We're still showing that we're committed to paying our debt back. But I can tell you there is a limited amount of money in the world. Right now what's happening is the United States taking on so much debt, we are reducing activities in the market because people that are going to invest are either going to invest it in some sort of capital investment in the stock market and bonds and something else, or they're going to do it in sovereign debt. Well, we're requiring so much right now in sovereign debt, they're coming to us. So we're depressing the stock markets and the markets all around the world by pulling liquidity out of that and putting it into our debt. That's irresponsible. We want to accelerate the worldwide economy. We need to stop taking out so much debt so we can put more liquid back into the market.
Do you think the stock market would be doing better if we weren't borrowing so much money these days?
Oh, it absolutely would be doing better because those people that are now having to buy up treasuries would instead be buying stocks and they'd be engaged in other things. So yes, we are slowing down the worldwide economy by taking on more and more debt. There's a fixed amount of dollars out there at any given time worldwide. We're trying to get as many of those as we can, and we're talking about trying to get 2 trillion more of them. We'll slow it down even more. We've got to get out of this cycle.
Congressman, great to see you. Thank you for being here.